And, I really like your perspective on the Epstein stuff. So, what do you think is going on with this? Like, what is the deal with the Epstein files or lack thereof?
Starting off strong, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. We gotta hook people in the beginning.
Well, it's a difficult one because I think that there's a lot of potential realities that are going on here as to why things may or may not be happening, why they're not releasing them. I think it doesn't look good politically whenever you have your attorney general saying that they're on my desk. And then, you have Bongino saying we're looking into it. There's tens of thousands of hours, and then they don't have them. And then we want to just cover it up like it never existed. Meanwhile, Trump campaigned on it. So I think all of it is it's very confusing to say the least. And I think whenever you're someone who's leading this country, the one thing you shouldn't be is confusing, because as the leader of a country, if you're confused, then the rest of your people are confused, and that's not a good place to be. So, yeah, outside of that, it's a lot of theories in my opinion. And I think, there's a lot of potential people who are probably on that list. But at the same time, I do still believe like in the court of law. And I think that we need to trust the process and trust that the DOJ will investigate it, that they will look through those files, and that they will, come to the conclusion that is what it is. Because I think you have a situation where, someone was convicted of child trafficking, of a ton of other illegal things with children, and yet we don't have any people, any clients. We don't know who they were, where they went, where the kids are, any of this stuff. It's all hush hush. And you could argue that that's a part of the legal process until everything's all wrapped up. But at this point, it seems a little disingenuous. But at the end of the day, I still stand firm that we need to trust the process and trust the judicial system that they'll come out with and eventually tell us what's actually going on.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you though, I don't trust the process anymore. I really don't, unfortunately. And here's the big elephant in the room, in my opinion, about it is, you've got people saying, "Oh, Trump's on it. Trump's on the list. He went to the island and he did this." I'll give you my thoughts and then give me yours. I honestly don't think he did. I don't think he is on the list in the way that maybe Prince Andrew or a Bill Clinton even is on the list. I do think he palled around with Epstein. I think they ran around together in Florida. They partied together. They did all of that stuff. Who knows? Maybe they had a falling out. Maybe that's why he banned him from Mar-a-Lago, whatever. But I don't think he's nefariously on the list. What I do think is I don't think that he wants to allow the connection to be made between Epstein to Mossad, Mossad to Israel, and then tell the American people, hey, it was the Israeli government that's honeypot us for 20 plus years. And so, with everything that you see with Trump being so pro Israel, I mean, like just to where he has completely fractured his own base, to me, I think it's that with him. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that there is a lot of evidence that does support, I don't see any smoke and gun, which I think is the difficult part that
Right.
directly connects Epstein to Mossad. But there is a lot of circumstantial evidence and facts that we know about. Obviously, there's far more intelligent people on the matter, but from what I've seen, what I've been exposed to, it does seem likely. Again, this could be a reason that they're keeping it hush hush because you don't want to incriminate, or, if there's any other operations that they have going on, who knows? I
Yeah.
do believe that, and I think this is probably something we'll get into at some point in the podcast, but regardless, I think at some level, if he is or he isn't, I think you can just look at AIPAC and their influence over all of our politicians, over our president. Whenever you give somebody money, you expect a return on your investment. You don't just
That's
give
right.
people money for no reason. So if you're contributing to someone's campaign and you're a foreign country, I mean, I think that might be one of the most treasonous things that a politician could do, because you're literally saying that regardless if it benefits my citizens, the people who I'm supposed to be serving, I'm going to be your slave. I'll be your puppet. And the reality is that we should demand politicians only accept money from the American citizens, because in my opinion, and the way I'm going to run my campaign and my future campaigns is to only accept money from the citizens, because I see political office as being in servitude, or essentially being the slave of the citizens of that country. And so, in a way, it could be you could see the Epstein file and the Mossad connection as almost this smoke and mirror, when all the further we have to look is AIPAC. The millions of dollars they've given to Trump, the millions of dollars they've given to senators, to House of Representatives, and anyone who steps out of line, Thomas Massey, for instance, they get a primary against them. So it's not really a shocker to me. I think, if we want to talk about smoke and gun evidence, I think we should focus there. But at the same time, we do need to have justice on the Epstein files and who those clients are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, it's just caused such a loss of credibility for the administration and for all of these people involved. Bongino and Cash Patel being the two biggest. Those guys were beating the Epstein drum for 4 years on every podcast, on their own podcast. I mean, there's so many clips of Dan Bongino saying, guys, we can't let them get away with this. We've got to keep putting the pressure on, from as recent as 2023 and 2024. And now here they are in a position to put the pressure on and to give the truth. And again, it's 3-card Monty. They're moving things here, they're moving things there. I'll tell you my prediction of what's going to happen next. You keep seeing Ghislaine Maxwell, or Ghislaine Maxwell, however you pronounce her first name, and they're talking about giving her. She said, hey, I'm willing to testify. I bet you they'll cut a deal with her. She'll testify in front of Congress. She'll testify the way they want her to testify and get her immunity. What does she have to lose? She's sitting in jail for 20 years. I don't think she cares about protecting Jeffrey Epstein anymore. So basically, she'll come out and say, oh, there was nothing. It was all Epstein. I was his consigliere or concierge, and I set everything up for him. And she'll get out, and then they'll basically say, see everybody, case closed. But I don't think people are falling for it, man. I don't think people are falling for it.
I don't think so either, and I hope that's not the case. However, the history of our political system has been letting us down, and I really do think that that's where the American Congress Party comes into play. And whether you vote Republican or Democrat,
Yeah.
neither side has really been a voice for what the people desire, and they continue to let us down. And so, at some point, you have to ask yourself, are we truly being represented in Congress?
Want the full truth? Watch the full Deep Shallow Dive interview next. And hit subscribe if you're done with narratives and ready to call a spade a spade.